Well, my name is Kevin Yeary, and I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I grew up in Laredo. I came to school at St. Mary's University and stayed there for law school. I've been a lawyer for 22 years. It was really my intent as a younger lawyer to be a civil litigator. I had a job lined up in a firm upon graduation, but before I could take that job, I was hired by Judge Bill White at the Court of Criminal Appeals to be his briefing attorney. And that really kind of changed the course of my career. Because I did take that job, and at the end of the year at the Court of Criminal Appeals, I went back to the civil firm where I had intended to be employed at first, and I worked there for 3 years. And I did, in addition to the civil work that we did in the firm, I also did some criminal defense work, did some trial court work and some appellate work, and had some really good experiences in the appellate arena. And so I had some cases that I was successful on and made an impact on. And so it led me to believe that I really felt called to do that really for a career rather than the civil litigation that was my initial intent. And so I looked for a way to do that, got hired by the Dallas DA's office into their appellate division when John Vance was the DA there. I stayed there until I was ready to get married to my wife, who's a pediatrician. She was in training in Houston at the time, so in order to get married to her, I had to go there. And luckily, Mr. Holmes, Johnny Holmes was the DA in Houston, and his office hired me into their appellate division, where I continued to do criminal appellate work. When my wife finished her training, we decided to move to San Antonio because we'd had our first daughter by then. We wanted to raise our children around family. And so I've been working with the Bexar County DA's office pretty much ever since then. So I've had about 18 years of criminal appellate experience as a prosecutor, 3 years of criminal experience when I was working in that civil firm, and then of course I also worked at the Court of Criminal Appeals itself. And with 3 open seats at the Court of Criminal Appeals, my attention was drawn to the court as a possible career change, and one of those seats was place 4, which is the same seat that was held by the judge who hired me to work there 22 years ago. So I have a certain, I guess you'd call it a sentimental draw towards that seat, and that's why I'm running.
Some have alleged that the Court of Criminal Appeals is too state or prosecutor friendly and has a propensity to dismiss serious prosecutorial misconduct as, quote, harmless error, end quote. As a prosecutor, especially on the appellate side, do you agree with this assessment? And how would you bring, or would you bring a different approach to the bench?
Well, I think there's been some decisions made by the Court of Criminal Appeals that have been criticized by some. I think it's easy to criticize. It's much more difficult to be inside the court and make the tough decisions and follow the law. The court isn't the answer to all the problems in the world. The court is the court, and the job of the court is really to settle disputes that arise within the law. I certainly know there have been some high-profile cases where it seems that they've not given the result that some people think they should have given. But I'm not going to criticize those decisions. What I'm going to say is that when I'm there, I'm going to do my best job to make sure that we make the right decisions and that we follow the law and that we get justice to happen in every case.
Do you think the Court of Criminal Appeals currently vets capital punishment cases properly?
I think that they do their best to follow the law. I know each one of the judges on the court, and each one is a different personality with a different background, and I think they do their best under the circumstances. Sometimes they don't have all the answers. They don't have all the facts in front of them, and they do their best. There's 9 of them, so that no one judge can make it, the outcome in any one case. They have to get together and work together to try to get to justice. And again, certainly they've been criticized, but again, it's easy to be a critic. It's much harder to be the person who's in the position trying to make the right decisions in each case.
How would you describe your judicial philosophy?
I think my judicial philosophy probably closely resembles Justice Scalia, Justice Thomas, and Justice Alito. I tend to be an originalist. I think that what we should do when we're looking at the law and interpreting the law is, and the Constitution as well, is try to stick to what the meaning of the words were when they were written on the page. Otherwise, we're just making it up as we go along. And then, if that's the way we do things, then nobody has confidence what the law is going to be, because then it only depends on what the judge thinks who's sitting there, as opposed to having a fair playing field where we all can see the words on the page and understand what they mean.
Is there anything you can do, if you're elected, to expedite the appeals process?
I do think sometimes the appeals process takes too long. The Fourth Court of Appeals has done, I practice mostly in front of the Fourth Court of Appeals in San Antonio, and they have a pretty good record of turning cases around. They usually will get a case disposed in under a year. The U.S. Supreme Court tends to get cases disposed within a year, with some few exceptions. And I have had cases that have gone to the Court of Criminal Appeals and I guess lingered there under submission for up to 2 years before, and that does seem too long sometimes. Now, again, that's one of those situations where it's easy to criticize from the outside, and once you're on the inside, it may be that they're doing the best they can, right? Under the circumstances, they've got 9 judges that they all have their opinions. They all have something that they might want to say, and so it might take time for each of them to write an opinion. But generally speaking, I think that cases should take no more than a year on appeal, and if I'm at the court, then I'm certainly going to encourage them to dispose of cases quickly, because I've been a litigant in a number of appeals, and I understand that delay certainly also delays justice.
Do you see any opportunities to improve the ethical integrity of the court?
Well, I think that question presupposes that there are ethical problems at the court. And again, I think it's easy to criticize from the outside.
Well, I'm not saying there are, it could be ethical, but there's opportunities for even higher ethics.
Sure.
Do you think there are opportunities for that, or do you see any areas where it could, the ethics of the court could increase?
What any member of the court has an obligation to see that justice is done in every case that comes before the court. And in terms of ethics, I think that when I'm there, I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that we do things the right way. Certainly not going there with any kind of an agenda, only going there to make sure that we can decide cases appropriately and get justice to happen in the state. There are cases where individuals have been found to be not guilty years after they've been convicted. I think the Court of Criminal Appeals has done a good job, really, in responding to those cases when they come up and when the evidence is there to demonstrate that they actually are innocent and a mistake has been made. So I'm not one who will criticize the ethics of the court. I think that they are good people who are trying to do a good job under tough circumstances, and I certainly intend to be as ethical as possible when I'm there.
I want to thank you for joining us today. How can people find out more about your campaign?
Well, my name is Kevin Yeary. I have a website called www.yearyforjudge.com. You can certainly look at my website. I'm also on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And you can call me. 210-387-1767 is my phone number. I'm happy to visit with anybody who wants to talk to me about the campaign. I'm working real hard. I'm trying to get people to know about me. And I will do a good job for the state when I get there. And I hope to win everybody's support. Thanks.
Thank you.